Good morning. Let's begin the session. And before we get into the readings, let's take a few moments to be fully present. Let's focus on our breath. Let me follow a few breaths all the way in and all the way out. Let me be fully present for our readings so that I can absorb more. I'm invoking Mother's presence to help us understand and live the reading. Thank you. So it will be a short session today, maybe 40 minutes or so. And we had started the book Looking from Within. So we'll be taking it up further. I'll screen share it. So it's a compilation by Sri A.S. Dalal. And just as a recap, because we did not have a session last week, we spoke about, it started with, the introduction started with what is attitude and, the difference and defining it. And it basically said that in psychological jargon, an attitude has a cognitive part like thinking, affective, which is feeling, and conative, which is willing. So, a change in one's attitude towards a thing, person, circumstance, or event implies change in the way one thinks, feels, and is disposed to action in relation to the thing, person, circumstance, or event. So that was the definition of an attitude which was given to us. And further, now the main thing that had started was that, we are aware of our outer being, but that is not the only being. So there are two divisions in the human being, the outer beings, which constitutes the personality, and the inner being, which is the true being. So that's what we had started reading. And in the last session, we had taken up the physical being. So this time we have to take vital, but before we take that, if we can do an overlap, we'll read the physical being first. If there's any question, we'll take that up. Otherwise, then we'll go to vital being and start our reflections. So if anybody is willing, if they can read the physical being.
The physical being, though people generally attribute consciousness and intelligence only to the mind and look upon the body as something mechanical, the psychology of yoga reveals that the body is endowed with its own characteristic consciousness and intelligence. It is the consciousness in the body which regulates the complex workings of the different bodily organs and psychological systems. Though the mind exhibits a higher form of consciousness and intelligence than that of the body, it cannot but marvel at the wisdom of the body expressed in the various processes which maintain the body and heal it in illness or accident. However, physical consciousness as compared to mental consciousness, is seen to be relatively inert, obscure, narrow, or limited, and automatic or mechanical in its functionings. Thus, attitudes which are characterized by rigidity, narrowness, conservatism, or slowness to change, indifference or boredom, and habitual or routine modes of action and reaction are related to the physical part of our being.
Yes, thank you. So that was the physical being. So we had discussed it last week. So if there are any questions, we can take them. Otherwise, we can now read the vital being.
So, Taru, I think like I recently went through the science book again, which is in school, which talks about the voluntary and involuntary actions. I think the physical actions are a little bit like the involuntary actions, like the heart beating, the heart pumping. It's happening on its own. Like we run away when we are scared or to save ourselves from any injury. These are all involuntary actions. So, do we have control over them or they just happen on their own? I
I
mean,
think
is there
as you,
intelligence?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So basically, I think for a normal, person living an ordinary life, not a normal, let's use the word ordinary. Most of these things are involuntary, right? Like the body knows what it's doing and it's doing that. And yet we know that people, when they come down to it, when we even like go to say uh, circus, for example, or a gymnastic performance, the things that we see when we say look at a sports event, we realize that oh my God, what all is the body capable of. When we talk about the saints, the mystics, the masters, we know so much. We've all heard that how Jesus walked on water. So those things are a possibility. People can stay without breathing for so many, I don't know, hours or days. There are so many such stories that people can control their heartbeats. Like not people, basically saints, who have worked on themselves, who know their body better. So it's possible to have control voluntarily over a lot of things, but that does require a lot of sadhana. So for ordinary beings, it's involuntary. But if we have interest and we want to work on it, that yes, we are capable of doing it voluntarily, most of the things. And yet, I think that it's just, yeah, I mean, what it's, trying to say is that one can feel that the body doesn't know, and yet the body knows, right? That's what I think it's just saying, that if I get injured, it knows how to clot the blood. It knows how, in how much time, how it can form a layer. It knows how the healing has to happen. People go through like huge instances, accidents. Even doctors could say that that person would never walk again. And yet we have countless examples of, say, cancer curing, and these people who again could walk, run again despite all the negative, forecast, like the movie Forrest Gump, that's very popular. So those are all instances and examples of how it's not as limited and how it can be conquered. I don't know if that answered your question. You could ask again.
no, I think it's fine. It answers.
Okay.
I think maybe when we are not aware it's happening on its own, it's involuntary, but then at some level, when the consciousness increases, then few things slowly and gradually start becoming voluntary also.
I think firstly, we don't even pay attention that it's happening. As the mindfulness and consciousness increases, we become aware that it's happening. That when I'm angry, look at my breathing, look at my heartbeat. When I'm going through this, when I'm sad, this happens. When I feel threatened, that happens. A normal, ordinary individual, apologies for the word normal, a regular individual living a regular life, we are not even aware what all happens to me. But then we start becoming aware with increased consciousness. And then when I think we further get into it, if we have an interest in it and we want to develop it further, then with more and more sadhana, more and more practices, one can gain more and more control over the so-called involuntary bodily functions. But the awareness, I think, is the middle step, that at least I know what's happening, how it's happening.
Right.
So if there is nothing else, if we want to discuss it again, I'll be happy to. The physical one, you can let me know. Otherwise, if we are ready, we can read the vital being. Please let me know.
Yes, ma'am, namaskar. So down the line, can we read that first para
Yeah,
again?
the physical being.
Yes,
Yeah, so Jagan, you can read it and you can stop wherever you want to if you want to discuss anything.
sure. So the physical being, though people generally attribute consciousness and intelligence only to the mind and look upon the body as something mechanical, the psychology of yoga reveals that the body is endowed with its own characteristic consciousness and intelligence. It is the consciousness in the body which regulates the complex workings of the different bodily organs and psychological systems. Okay. Though the mind exhibits a higher form of consciousness and intelligence than that of the body, it cannot but marvel at the wisdom of the body expressed in the various processes which maintain the body in health and heal it in illness or accident. However, physical consciousness, as compared to mental consciousness, is seen to be relatively inert, obscure, narrow, or limited, and automatic or mechanical in its functioning. Those attitudes which are characterized by rigidity, narrowness, uh, conservatism or slowness to change, indifference or boredom, and habitual or routine modes of action and reaction are related to the physical part of our being. Okay, ma'am. So the last sentence. So if you can scroll a little upwards. Okay, so yeah, this those attitudes which are characterized by rigidity, narrowness, conservatism, or slowness to change, indifference or boredom, and habitual or routine modes of action and reaction are related to the physical part of our being. So is this paragraph telling us that those attributes are being controlled by the body, or is it something different that I'm not understanding?
Yeah, so what I understand from this, Jagan, here is that, you know how it says it's comparing physical consciousness to mental consciousness. You know, mental, we feel it's very sharp, right? I just get it, or I don't, and then I try to get it and I get it. It's like it seems very dynamic, right? So, and that's, we falsely believe, because mental consciousness is so dynamic and physical consciousness is so silent. Like when the body is repairing itself, we don't know that it's repairing, right? There is no pomp and whistle about it. When somebody's pregnant, the body doesn't say that now, tomorrow, when you wake up, your stomach will be this big, or, there's nothing actively happening. And yet, in 9 months, when you look at a person, you're like, oh my God, you're a football, right? Like, so much has happened, not just a physical look. So, because the body does everything silently, it's not loud, it's not a aha movement. And usually, a lot of times in our mental aspects, we have those moments, right? That, yes, I get it. But in physical things, we don't, right? They're just generally silently happening. So there it's saying that because mental is so dynamic, it doesn't mean that physical doesn't exist. It's just silent. It just doesn't make itself so apparent, just like mental. So that was the big, the basic thing. So it appears to be inert, obscure, narrow, or limited. Inert, again, slow, obscure, that which I can't see. Inert can be maybe even lazy. Narrow is, again, less. Limited is restricted. And automatic or mechanical, that, it doesn't seem that I have to do anything to repair my body. So it appears that way, and thus attitudes which are characterized by rigidity. Rigidity means things that don't move, right? They are rigid, fixed. Narrowness, conservatism, like always towards less, or slowness to change. Whenever we are working with the physical, we see how difficult it is to change our habits, and the physical aspects. To lose weight is so tough, especially for people who are not, always on the verge of wanting to be more and more fit. So the slowness to change, indifference or boredom, and habitual or routine modes of action and reactions are related to the physical part of the being. Like when I think, mental seems dynamic, and when I think of physical, either I think it does not have a consciousness, or I see that whatever it has, these are its characteristics. Just that. Okay, rigidity is one of the characteristics. Conservatism, slowness, indifference, boredom, routines is how the body works. Yeah, so just that aspect, the comparison between mental and physical here.
Yes, it is clear to me. Thank you.
And because it has a consciousness, so it's not really mechanical, right? It's saying it has a consciousness, it has an intelligence which is taking care of it. So that's the physical being. We may believe it doesn't have a consciousness, it's mechanical, but that's not true. So, of course, these things will be further elaborated. This is just an introduction. And if anything is not clear, we can even look up more articles in Incarnate Word and make it clearer. So, moving on to the vital being. So let's look at the vital being. Vital, before we progress, is basically, it comes from the word vitality. Energy, life energy, prana. So that is the vital. So if anybody is willing, they can read it. Otherwise, I'll read this paragraph on vital being.
I can read this. The vital being, intermediate between the physical and the mental, is the vital, made up of life energies, sensations such as pleasure, pain, etc., instincts and impulses such as anger, fear, lust, etc., desires, feelings, and emotions. The vital is aptly so called because it is the source of life force and seeks after life for its own sake. Okay, I'll just read that one more time. The vital is aptly so called because it is the source of life force and seeks after life for its own sake, clinging to life even if it brings more of suffering than of pleasure. The vital consciousness is characterized by likes and dislikes, the search for pleasure and enjoyment, and the avoidance of pain and discomfort, desire to possess and to accumulate. Common attitudes based on the vital consciousness express a hedonistic orientation in life, what Freud referred to as the pleasure principle. Besides the quest for pleasure, these attitudes are characterized by a need for perpetual variety and change, ambitiousness, attachment and repulsion, aggression, fear, and impulsiveness.
Yes, thank you, Gagan.
Um, That word, a hedonistic orientation in life, I'm just wondering what that meaning is.
So hedonistic means that, just one-sided, that बस मुझे ये करना ही है, very, very strongly, like, stubbornly. So
Okay.
just going through it, the vital being, intermediate between the physical and the mental, is the vital, made up of life energies, sensations like pleasure and pain, instincts and impulses, anger, fear, lust, desires, feelings, and emotions. So, what all comes under vital? Somehow it feels confusing because it's not a very popular term, vital. But Sri Aurobindo use, like in integral yoga, it's used very extensively. So basically, just to avoid any confusion, going through it again, it's life energies. That's, prana again is vital. So life energies, all sensations like pleasure, pain, instincts, and impulses like anger, fear, lust, desires, feelings, and emotions, they all make up the vital. And they're further, I think when we go in further, we'll see that there's a lower vital, a true vital, a higher vital. So we'll get into that. But right now it's just this. So the vital from the Latin word vita, which means life, is aptly so called because it is the source of life force and seeks after life for its own sake, clinging to life even if it brings more of suffering than of pleasure. So its life force seeks after life for its own sake, clinging to life even if it brings more of suffering than of pleasure. So what I am understanding from this is that lot of times if you look at the things that vital is, desires, feelings, emotions, anger, lust, we make see it very clearly mentally that it's not serving me, right? When I'm angry, after I get okay, I can use the word at times hate, right? I hate myself for being angry. I see what harm it does to me and others, and yet I cannot drop my anger. I might look at desires, right? I desire, I might not want to desire, and yet my small, 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 small desires are hidden in so many areas. So I may clearly see the mental being in me, may clearly see that this is not working for me. And yet the life energy might be clinging to the desire. So that's what I understood here. That source of life force seeks after life for its own sake, clinging to life even if it brings more suffering than of pleasure. We might not be willing to give up our old ways, our likes, dislikes, aisa yu main, not knowing that it could be giving me more pain than pleasure. And yet for me to maintain aisa hi hu main, lot of times feels more important to me. So it's just pointing towards that. that my own likings may be causing me, not maybe, they do, right, cause us suffering. So the vital consciousness is characterized by likes and dislikes, the search for pleasure and enjoyment, and the avoidance of pain and discomfort, desire to possess and to accumulate. So this is the character. So the white, like the physical consciousness, it had its characters, especially the ones, Jagans, that you were referring to, right? The slowness, the inertness, that was the characters of physical consciousness. And the vital consciousness, the characters are likes, dislikes, search for pleasure and enjoyment, avoidance of pain and discomfort. So that in me, which says I like this, I don't like this, is my vital. The one which is always going for pleasure and enjoyment is the vital in me. The one that wants to avoid pain and always go towards comfort is the vital in me. And the desire to possess, right? I want to own. I see something, I see a beautiful flower, or I see a nice car, anything. Just seeing is not mostly enough for me, right? I want to own it. So the desire to possess and to accumulate, that I want, I might not have any use for it. I might forget it even after buying it, but I want to own, my precious kind of a thing. So that is the nature, the characteristic of the vital consciousness. Should I pause or should I continue?
So it's like the emotions and feelings and all.
Yeah. The energy, the movement, that kaise kar diya,
Hmm.
let's me do this, let's do that. So people who are very chirpy and bubbly and full of life, they are vital dominated.
So like in Vedanta we have Sthul Sharir, Suksham Sharir and Karan Sharir. So
Hmm.
this would be the Suksham Sharir.
Yeah, I think derived from prana, yes. Subtle body would have, which have the, yeah, I think so.
So it's said that sanskar and all they are a part of the Suksham Sharir. Like Sthul Sharir is the physical body we live here,
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
and Suksham शरीर में जो संस्कार होते हैं those we take along.
आई डोंट नो वो सूक्ष्म में होते हैं कि वो किसी और लेवल पे होते हैं, मुझे पता नहीं है, सटल बॉडी में ही होते होंगे, या यू आर राइट. Yeah. So I don't know whether
Mm-hmm.
it's directly that. I'll look it up and I'll confirm next week. But yeah, the subtle should be vital. And I don't know whether where the impressions go, right? The sanskar, like what we carry on,
Yeah,
should be
yeah,
here only.
yeah,
Cannot,
yeah. It should be
and
here
part of
only.
mental also, where say mental also is carried on, right? Like they say the knowledge that you acquire, that
Hmm.
also you have, you carry it with you.
But I think that the knowledge that we acquire indirectly affects the vital only. Like probably
Okay.
initially the vital is uncontrolled,
Hmm.
and then slowly and gradually through knowledge we try
Hmm.
and kind of um, balance the vital.
Tame, right? Tame the,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, right.
I think when the term subtle is used, I think vital to me at least it feels like it's in my face because it's always there. With all the yeses and nos and all the desires and the sadness and the happiness and the excitement and all. So maybe I'm wrong, so I'll just wait for that this next paragraph to be completed. Maybe I'll have more questions on vital.
Yeah, Jagan, I actually didn't get what you said. Could you just repeat yourself once?
Yes, sure. So, when Ritu ma'am was talking about subtle,
Hmm.
ma'am, am I audible? Because I'm not
Yeah,
sure if
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
audible.
You're audible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'm thinking that how can vital be subtle based on the characteristics that's being explained in the paragraph? Because I think to me, vital, I think it feels like it's in my face all the
Okay.
time.
Understood. Okay, it's loud.
Yes.
Yeah,
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 it's loud.
yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, she didn't mean subtle, but there's a subtle body that we have. So she's saying that vital probably belong to the subtle body because वो हाथ में नहीं आता ना. If I say touch your angle, you cannot touch it, right? I say tell me, give me your lust. You cannot hand it to me. So I think from that aspect, it's subtle. It's not gross. It's not like raw. Physically, it's not right. Like it has different
Okay, it's
characteristics.
not
We don't know where
tangible.
it comes from. It's not tangible, and that's why it would be subtle.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
abstract.
Yeah. So moving down further, the vital consciousness, we read this, and then the common attitudes based on the vital consciousness express a hedonistic orientation in life, what Freud referred to as the pleasure principle. That I just want, say, comfort, right? Like what drives me? Just comfort. What do I want? Maybe ambition. What drives me then? Ambition. So what there's one thing that I just pick up and I start moving towards that, not seeing whether it's doing me any good or not. So besides the quest for pleasure, like Freud had mentioned that basically we just work towards pleasure, 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 what gives us pleasure. But that theory was kind of denied by many because a lot of sacrifices there in humans, and also it was contradicted. So, besides the quest for pleasure, these attitudes are characterized by a need for perpetual variety and change, ambitiousness, attachment and repulsion, aggression, fear, and impulsiveness. So, besides the quest for pleasure, which is mentioned here in the pleasure principle, these attitudes are characterized by a need for perpetual variety, right? Like we want different things, especially the vital, right? Because it's a desire center. We cannot eat the same food every day. We want change. We don't want to spend the life every day cannot be the same. We want change. We want to go out. We want to try different things. We want to go for a movie. So this variety is vital driven. Ambitiousness, attachment, repulsion, aggression, fear, and impulsiveness. So these are the attributes of vital, just as we had read the attributes of the physical. So again, just reminding us that this is just the introduction, and of course, because these are very important terms, these will be taken up in further details in the book, I'm sure. Otherwise, we obviously can refer to so much information is there about these physical, vital, mental being. But I think this is just there so that we are familiar with them, so that once they come inside in the compilations, we know what they are referring to. So if we are okay, we can read the mental being too today. It's a very small para. Yeah.
The mental being, this is the part of our makeup which has to do with thoughts and ideas, facts and knowledge. Reason and intellect are the most highly developed expressions of the mental consciousness. In contrast to the vital, which is governed by the pleasure principle, the mental is guided by what accords with reason and is deemed to be true or good. Therefore, when the mental consciousness is predominant in an individual, the attitudes of the individual are characterized by a rational outlook and are based on moral and intellectual principles.
So I think this is probably the easiest out of all because again we are so mentally identified. So here it says that this is the part of our makeup which has to do with thoughts and ideas, facts and knowledge. thoughts, ideas, facts, and knowledge. Reason and intellect are the most highly developed expressions of the mental consciousness, right? Reason, intelligence are the most highly developed expressions. In contrast to the vital, which is governed by the pleasure principle, the mental is guided by what accords with reason, that whatever I believe is the best reasoning that is originating within me. It might not be true, it might be very limited, or it might even be false, but if I think it's reasonable, if it's resonating with me, I would go with that. Or we are guided by, the reasons tell us whether it's true or good, and we are guided by that. So therefore, when the mental consciousness is predominant in any individual, in an individual, so either you can, some people are vital consciousness is stronger, in some physical is conscious, they are more inert, in some most mental consciousness is predominant. So if that is predominant, it says the attitude of the individual are characterized by a rational outlook. What makes the most sense? Some people are just, happy go lucky that this is what I want, this is what I want to do, and they are so happy living that. And there are other people who are like, no, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't seem right. So that rational outlook are based on moral and intellectual principles. Yeah. So any reflections, any questions on the mental being?
Yeah, so like sometimes
Yes,
we say that this is a very emotional person, so that means the vital is stronger in that person. Sometimes we
Absolutely,
say
yes.
he's a very practical person,
Hmm.
that means the mental is stronger. Let's say if somebody who's very good in mathematics or accounts or physics, is it that the vital would be stronger and somebody who's interested in poetry and languages, so the vital would be
Yeah,
stronger?
so the mathematics and the physics that would be mental, and the
Yeah.
poetry and all would be vital. Yes, that appears to be. Yes.
And then like these are okay, but then we never say this person's physical is very stronger. Maybe a person who's very into sport.
Yeah, could be that, Ritu. But you know how when we speak about lazy people, right? Tamasic in nature, who don't really want to do
Mm.
things, who just want to stay, who don't have sleeping patterns, and it's like they have things that they like, but still their desire to rest precedes over other things. Their desire to eat, for example, like things that are more just body oriented, that's what drives them. So that person would be physically dominant. That
Mm-hmm.
mind might be saying that no, come on, this makes no
Mm-hmm.
sense, but the vital is strong, it doesn't want to move. There are demands and desires which makes sense, the person wants to, and yet because the tamas of the body is stronger, it's very difficult for them to you know rise above. And that's why mother says that passions are better than laziness, right? Tamas se better hai passion ho. And then passion again, then it has to be conquered. But if you're doing nothing, but if you want to do something passionately out of just sheer that I just want to, that's a much better state than that inertness of the physical.
Right.
And then that also has to be conquered, right? Because emotions also just take us here and there. Desires also take us here and there. But desires are better than tamasic laziness. So at least it gets you moving, right? And once you're moving, you're in the vital, then you can be further go into, again, that stillness, which is not tamasic stillness.
Basically, a balance is needed between all the three.
I mean, it has to be, I think, transcended, right? The tamas is trying to pull. It has to be transacted, it goes into vital, then the vital is trying to drive here, you go do this, and then you feel no, not even this, then that is transcended. So balance is again at an ordinary level, but in integral yoga, one who's working to become lighter and simpler, these things have to be transcended. It's not that a little bit of laziness is okay, a little bit of desire is okay. It has to be transcended because we see that it's not serving me.
So,
It's just
by
taking me in the
transcended,
loops.
it would mean like in case we are very tamasic by nature, we need to move ahead and have be more passionate, have some desires, and then the next level would be to um, think rationally about those desires which we have.
Yeah. So mother says that till the psychic takes over, let reason be the master of the house. So that is the
Okay.
highest that is possible right now. But the absolute highest, which is, of another dimension, would be the psychic consciousness. But the basic is the physical consciousness. Say, we are coming from stones, right? So stones से better है feelings, right? जैसे कि stone से जैसे plant है उसमें ये सब हो रहा है, उससे better है mental. So physical, mental, then vital, and उसके beyond psychic.
अच्छा, physical, mental, vital और physical,
नहीं नहीं नहीं,
vital
sorry.
नहीं है.
Actually मुझे ना somebody sending something. Let me just disconnect this. I don't know if you're getting disturbed or not. Yeah, so physical, vital, and mental, like you had
Yeah.
only said, that was the right thing. If I said it differently, I, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Chagan, please.
So, ma'am, if we are made up of, like, if I am made up of physical, mental, and vital, and physical has its own consciousness, doing its own thing subtly, and vital is, giving me all the yes and no's and the nice and not nice things, and mental is actually talking rationally and has reasoning and it has intelligence. Then, if these three are me, then is there a different being that is listening to these three, or is
Yeah,
it?
so that's a beautiful question, Jagan. That's what it said, right? That this is the outer being, and these are the three parts of the outer being which we think is me. And after this will take us to the inner being, which would be the truer me. So I'm not the physical, I'm not the vital, I'm not the mental. I have a physical, I have a vital, I have a mental, but I am the master of these three. But in my ordinary consciousness, it doesn't appear to be. They rule me, right? I don't feel like this. I think that is true, right? That's what how I lead my life, but that is not my highest potential or possibility. And we'll read about the inner being. And then, there's even an innermost. I don't know if they'll do the classification here. There are three categories that I had read about: outer, inner, and innermost, which is connected directly to the God energy. So that's the thing. So neither of these are me, which you were referring to.
Because this is a long-standing doubt actually. I was under the impression that I am vital only, and I'm like the whole body. I'm my vital. I'm just shifting between like being vital or sometimes listening to the mental or listening to the body. But I didn't know that I'm standing outside of these three, being
Yeah.
its master, and then having the control to understand what to listen to. Okay, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
clarification. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Most welcome. Okay. So, although it appears really small, but I'm having some back strain issues, and I've been advised not to sit and stand for more than like a shorter duration. But I didn't want to miss the session. So today we had covered the vital being and the mental being. So we'll end the session here, and next time we'll start with the differences among the parts of the outer being. Yeah, so thank you for joining in. It was again apologies for the short session. And before we end, if we could just take, 1 minute to just thank Grace for the grace, the ability, the intellect, the desires to participate in a study circle so that I can be more than I currently am. I'm so grateful for this grace in my life. I wish this grace, I pray that this grace falls for everybody so freely and they're able to recognize it. So may all beings be truly well and truly happy and truly grateful for the abundance that they have in their lives. Thanking Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Thank you.